Welcome to the DTF Printing Podcast. I'm Adrienne Palmer, Editor-in-Chief of DTF.com. I'm here with Adam Steiner, owner-operator of Steiner Merch and Campus Shop in Detroit, Michigan. Today we're learning how DTF has been a lifesaver for his business, how to use DTF for high-volume orders, and how to operate a brick-and-mortar retail store. Adam, why don't you give us a little background? How did you get into the apparel decoration industry?
Absolutely. So I'm one of those guys whose dad did it. That's kind of how. So I kind of grew up in a shop. I always joke I used to clean screens for $0.25. That was our pay, was like $0.25 per screen. So I've kind of been around it forever. I came back to Detroit in 2015 and kicking and screaming, I ended up working with my dad. And since then, I kind of learned the whole industry and opened a retail store myself. So I kind of just got in, family business, and I guess I needed a job, to be honest.
Well, I hope when you came back, you were working for more than $0.25.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it wasn't much more in the beginning, but it got there.
So family business, really throughout the entire print industry, that's kind of a similar story. Sometimes with screen printing, it's, started screen printing for shirts for my band. But family business is, I would say, top 2-3 reasons why people get in the industry. But I'm finding that the younger generation now, they don't want anything to do with mom and dad or grandma and grandpa's business. What are your thoughts on that and getting the younger generation excited? It seemed like you weren't too thrilled to be doing it, but you wanted a job.
Yeah, I mean, when it started, for me, it was just sales. I mean, my dad was like, hey, if you want to sell t-shirts, sell them. It's a great way for him, I'm getting commission basically. So we're not taking on some big payroll. And I just kind of started selling t-shirts. I mean, I remember being on the phone with people and just lying because I had no clue what I was doing. And through that and years and ups and downs, I kind of fell in love with the craft of it and the actual screen printing, the actual, getting your hands dirty and doing that. And as far as working with my dad, previously before that, I was working with a guy very directly who was about my dad's age. And I had this thought process where I was like, man, if somebody's going to teach me business and teach me how to run a business, why wouldn't I spend that time with my dad? And that's kind of what brought me into it and made me do it. Was like, my dad's 70 now. And it was just like, why? I mean, what a great thing to be able to spend, 15, 20 years every day with my dad, learning what he did that supported me my whole life. So, I'm almost 40, so I was already 30, so I wasn't like a kid, but just that time and learning from him, he's seen it all. The guys ran everything from a 1-man team to a 20-man team, and so it's just been really great hanging out with him, and then also just the gift of a business.
Yeah, that's really nice, and definitely I'm sure you're not taking that for granted to have that time because not everyone gets that opportunity. Are you the only other family member in the business?
Yes. Yeah, there was a point in time where there was another sibling of mine in the business, but with family business, there is some hurdles that you go through. So he's not a part of it anymore. But it's just, I mean, I feel so lucky that every morning at 8 a.m, I go greet my dad with coffee. I mean, you can't beat that.
No, you can't. Are you able to turn it off? If you're at family dinners or birthday parties, it's like, oh my gosh, guys, stop talking about it. Or are people excited? How does that look after hours?
Yeah, I mean, there's little things here and there that will shoot back and forth. I mean, it's always fun. You go on a family trip and you're inside a tourist shop, feeling all the shirts and the prints, right? But for the most part, we keep it on the phone or in the shop and not so much at family events. And also because of the brother that's not a part of it anymore, it's just kind of better to leave it be.
Yeah, having some boundaries is always a good thing. And honestly, to have that mental break, enjoy your vacation. And yeah, of course, it's fun to see what blanks are at certain shops and the touch and feel of certain prints. I think we all end up doing that now. But okay, so you started working for your dad. Can you kind of talk a little bit about the culmination of now becoming owner operator, maybe a little bit of the process there.
Again, like it kind of piggybacks into DTF. So it was all sales. And then just we really were pumping crazy volume for a few years, like pre-COVID. And so it kind of just to get things done quicker, I started learning more of the artwork, vectoring images, burning screens, all the pre-press stuff, as opposed to being somebody that comes in and out that's with meeting with clients. I was in the shop a lot more, learning, the front half of a job, everything from the invoice all the way to production actually on the machine. So that happened. And then to be honest with you, like I never pulled a squeegee. Pre-COVID, I never pulled a squeegee. I mean, I didn't do it. I didn't embroider. And then it was just like slowly with challenges with staff and keeping staff. I just started learning more and more and more, really because I had to. I mean, there was no option. It was like we couldn't find people, this, that, and the other. And so that was kind of when I started taking over for the most part, the whole business. And my dad still being a part, my dad's like not retired, but like wants to travel more and stuff. It's so interesting because it was such a progression for me that it just kind of fell into my lap once I pretty much learned the entire way of doing it.
That's all of it. So much troubleshooting and testing and figuring it out. But you mentioned like that was a little bit of the progression to DTF. And, when we spoke earlier before the podcast, you said that DTF has been a lifesaver, even on high volume, 500 to 1,000 piece multicolor logos. So can you talk a little bit about, when you added DTF and maybe like the technology you have in house or whether you're outsourcing?
Yeah, so it was because our biggest bottleneck, which I think is any little shop, is screens. Really for us, even when we were fully staffed, getting enough screens reclaimed, coated, burned, dry onto press, if somebody threw a 5-color front, 5-color back at us, it would just get pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed because it was like, we can't mess up 6 customers' orders because we're going to spend 3 days getting this job ready. And so we actually like almost stopped taking multicolor orders because we couldn't keep up and we couldn't staff enough people and all these things. And I started seeing all the buzz with DTF. And at first, I'm like old school, like Stahl's transfers, right? Like forever. And they were expensive and they were not great. And I remember saying to my dad, actually, like, I think it was 2 ISS shows ago when like that was the talk of the town. Everybody was talking DTF. And I was like, this is so weird. Like, why are people talking about this now? It's been around forever. But we didn't really know the difference and how different it was and how it was blowing up. And it started with the retail store. And what's hard is we've got adult to toddler. And so you've got, a 5-color design. Your adult size isn't going to fit on your toddler. So now you've got 10 screens that you're wrapping up on a retail store that you're only going to print maybe 40, maybe, if you think it's going to pop. And so it was like, this shirt was adult, but we didn't have any kids. And so I was like, hey, why don't we start ordering transfers, this DTF stuff, and I'm from the time where like a full front DTF or like transfer print, as we call it, was like $9, and it's like, how can you have $16, $17 on a shirt you're selling for $25 at a retail store? So I randomly looked on a website that sold DTF and I was like, whoa, this pricing is completely different. Let's try it. And that was like the moment. And that was just, 6-8 months ago. And it was like a game. My dad and I, the conversations we had was like game changer. And it's been a complete game changer. And like you said, we had like a 650 piece order and the customer was really adamant about, it was like 9 colors. And our auto, our max color is 5 because we have a 6.8. And I was like trying to get it so that we could print it. And she just really wanted it. I'm like, hey, I can do this. It's going to be $5 more a shirt, but I can do a digital print that will be exactly what you sent me. And she was like, yes. And we ran that. And I hate to say it, but I don't believe it took much longer than if we would have done it on the auto with the reclaiming of the screens, burning screens, setting job up, replacing ink, all these things that happen when you're running a big job. And we didn't have those because we're just heat pressing away. And the craziest thing about that is this is a customer we've done this order for probably 6 years. And it's never been DTF. It's always been screen printed. Every year, I would get a phone call 3-4 days later, and there'd be some sort of issue, whatever it may be. It's a million different things. I never heard from her after we dropped the order off. Like digital print, she didn't know. I didn't say it's going to be a little bit different feel or anything like that. They delivered the shirts and not a peep. So all I could assume was she absolutely loved them. And it was just like a game. She was just like, oh my gosh, like it's like such a great way to speed up production for like small guys like me. Like, I mean, it's mind blowing. And the consumer, I mean, unless it's a picture and it's just, whatever, like they don't know the difference. And it almost feels better. I mean, like in some cases, the feel is actually better.
It seems like you didn't have to compromise anything with this client. If you would have just had your screen printing equipment, it would have been a conversation. Well, we're going to have to go down in color. We're going to have to do this, that, and the other. And it's like, no, we can do this for you. Mm-hmm. It is going to be a little bit more expensive. So that's something that they're going to have to decide upon. But if the end result is no complaints, that has to be a win for everyone.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, they looked great. And same thing. It was a kid's camp. So there was small and I think 5X. So I was even able to order 2 versions, which like, again, for a small shop that's not auto reclaiming, doesn't have 40 people working, doesn't have all these extremely expensive toys, right? Like we can't do that right now. And I, like, honestly, going into that, the business that we've built, like together, where we're at now, like I would never want to go to that level because it's like a nice niche where we're just fitting in and being able to do things that we weren't able to do in a timely fashion. And again, like the artwork is not compromised because it's legitimately exactly what they sent. I mean, I'm sure there'd be pushback from some people for the $5 extra or whatever it was I charged extra. But like for her, not even a question. And she got exactly what she wanted. And for the first time in 6 years, like I had 0 feedback, which I assume was a great thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe that because this is new technology and you're adding it to your shop recently, sometimes I think of, organic food. It was so expensive back in the day, and it's still expensive, but it's not as expensive. It doesn't seem so out of reach. And maybe that price point will minimize a little bit over, the next few years. But at the end of the day, is no customer complaints. That's incredible.
With the pricing though, is like, that's the thing is, I mean, if I'm telling somebody that they're going to get exactly what they want and there's 75 colors in the design, and I'm charging $17 at 650 units. Like all of a sudden now I'm actually doing less work and I'm making more money than I would have had we printed it and not done direct to film. So it's like a win, 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 win. And if the customer doesn't want to pay that, then we'll be happy to do one color for $10 or whatever. But also, like, why bottleneck the whole business for this one? And this is me talking to somebody in the industry, not me talking to a customer, but like, why bottleneck everything so that they can save money when, because like this business, everybody's just like on this rat race to the bottom. And like, I don't do that. Like go to the guy down the street for $6 because we're busy. Like, I'm not scared of missing out on your money because I know that there's a phone call right after you that has a better order, more money, more t-shirts. It's a freaking t-shirt. So that's my rant for the day.
Rants are allowed, controversies allowed, all good here at DTF Printing Podcast. Can you explain a little bit of the difference between Steiner merch and Campus Shop?
Yeah, so five years ago now, I think we're in our 5th year. We kind of had been toying around. We run a merchandise for this huge market in Detroit. It's a farmer's market, but it's like the biggest one it's like huge. And so we run their whole merch program. And that was kind of our first taste of retail margins where we're printing, a $4 shirt and we're selling it for $25. And that was a really eye-opening experience because it was like, wow, we can print 100 shirts, and on Saturday we can make $2,500, like every Saturday. And again, back to like before, where we're like selling 100 t-shirts for $4.95, and it was just not sticking, right? Like not enough money was sticking in those cheap things that we were doing. And so it was like, let's open a retail store in the city we live in, which is just outside Detroit. We kind of just started putting it out there, and we started in literally like I call it the closet down the hallway. It was like down a hallway behind a store, 350 square feet. We didn't have a name. We didn't have a design. We didn't have anything, but it was cheap to start. Like I think it was $500 a month to lease this little closet. It was like a tailor before. And so we put some shirts in there, and as like a completely separate business. And then like within the first couple of years, like expanded to the front store, and then knocked the wall down and took our back store back. And so now we had this whole retail store, and it's like fun because you're creative, and I'm a creative. Like my past was very creative, so we really enjoy like the creativity of it. It's a completely different beast than like churn and burn screen printing or DTF. But for our business, it's been a really, really fun outlet to just like be creative and have fun and celebrate our and celebrate the hometown and stuff like that.
Yeah, I just been on your website and your Instagram. It's super creative. It's super fun. Who runs that, and what have you found is the benefit to being so unique on social media and your website? How has that helped you stand out?
So like that. So it's kind of weird. So like when we started off in this closet, we had no storefront, right? So there was no sign that said the campus shop, whatever. We just kind of like poofed out of nowhere. And I had started Instagram, and I was like taking pictures of people in front of our hallway, in front of like a sign. And it would be like, here's, Tina, she's a mom of 3 and works at the store. I don't know, stupid stuff. And we'd been open for like 2-3 weeks, and I was going out of town for 2 weeks. Like summer, we always go away in the summer, and I was going away, and I'm like, what am I going to share on Instagram that like starts getting people's attention? So for the store, I came up with this Camper Dan. My name's not even Dan. Everybody in my freaking town thinks my name is Dan. But I came up with this like stupid guy that like is just like a good time guy or whatever. But it like stuck, and it just like rapidly went crazy. And like my whole thing is like sharing our product is great. Like people see it, and we do, sorry, my dog. And we do that a lot, but like really like the outlandish like behavior that I have done in the past has just brought attention to the store, where like I'm trying to like entertain people every day so that it's on their mind without stuffing product down their face all day. Has it been the reason that the store's been so successful? Like I think there's definitely a big part of it. And plus, like I said, I'm creative. So like it's super fun for me to just like put myself out there. My previous, total side note, like my previous career, like I did Broadway musicals in New York. So that's how I met my wife, like all that stuff. So that's what I did like in my 20s and stuff like that. So that outcome, like that for me is like super fun, and like keeps me invested in the business beyond, and has really benefited our store.
Were you performing? Were you performing in the musicals? Or wow, that's really cool. Is your background in theater?
Yeah. That's like what I went to college for. I actually met my wife in the Broadway musical Cap, believe it or not. As weird as that may sound.
That was the first musical I ever saw.
The worst or first?
Well, actually, it was the first, and maybe the worst. That's funny. I went to a school for the arts, 7th through 12th grade, and I majored in theater. So, two theater nerds here. Yeah. I can't sing though, so no music. I was in a musical in high school, and I had the only non-singing line. So that tells you my talent there. Really cool. So to go from musicals to slinging shirts, that's a big transition.
Yeah. I mean, it like I said, like the whole like social media thing has been a really great creative outlet for me, and like has actually like helped me like with consulting or helping other people trying to do similar things that were in my previous industry and like whatever they're doing. And I'm like, it's so wild because with social media, like love it or hate it, we're all allowed now to do whatever, you have an audience that you can build and you can do it on your own, whether it's for a restaurant or a t-shirt, I mean, that's what I always say, like people that have restaurants or food, I'm always so surprised at their social media because I'm like, you have food. Like I'm doing t-shirt. I'm selling freaking t-shirts. Like nobody needs a shirt that says Detroit or whatever on it. They'll buy it because they want it, but like they need to eat. And how are you like running this restaurant with the sickest burger I've ever had? And like, you don't even, so I've had a lot of fun with it. It's helped build the retail side of the business a lot.
Yeah, it does look like you're having a ton of fun. I love the Camper Dan persona. I think what's so cool about this industry is that you really can be a brand ambassador and you can really show the vibe of your business through social media. And so fun, quirky, unique, you're getting all of that. I mean, looking in the behind you, there's so much going on. It looks like you have an arcade game. You're getting that through your social media. And so you're going to get those types of customers too. And to go back to maybe the customer doesn't care so much about the process. They really just want a quality print and they want good customer service. But do you have any customers who are interested in the behind the scenes? We're seeing that a lot on social media. A lot of shops, that's what they do. Come in, check out our shop. This is how we print. And then people are excited because they've seen the process. What do your customers look like?
Yeah, I mean, there was a time where we were doing that like on the Steiner Instagram, which is like we don't do a lot on the Steiner Instagram for the custom. And we were doing like the video, like all that. Back like when I was more in sales, right? And I wasn't like on the floor printing the shirts. And it never really, for us at that time, it wasn't really generating that much business. I do think that there's a huge space for that production that people are seeing, and I think it's really cool. Right now I'm like pulled so many directions, which is maybe the bad part of where we're at right now, that like when I'm in the shop and I'm printing, like I'm not Camper Dan. I'm Adam. I'm covered in ink. I'm focusing on the job at hand. And, because there's days where with the smaller staff and stuff like that, like there's days where we're doing a run of 1,000 shirts. And I mean, I'm burning, setting up, printing, and sorting. So I have a bar like content cave in my garage. That's where I'm at right now. And the store, and like the whole thing of like the Camper Dan persona when I was going away was I wanted to be able to create media for the store from anywhere. So because I'm at my shop this morning at 7 a.m., printing out artwork, burning screens, doing all that, and then I swing back home to do this, and then I swing to the store, and then I'll run back and do a job. When I get home when my kid goes to bed at 8 o'clock, I can come out to my garage and throw some content out there really easily. And so that's something I always say with content is like the easier it is for you to produce content over and over and over, the better chance you have of doing it. Like at the shop, like if I could figure out a way to just post my phone and run a job and then speed it up and put some sweet music on it, it would probably be great, right? I've just not been there lately. And with that, like, because we have the retail store and then we also have this merchandise thing that we do every week, we're not looking for like 10 orders a day, right? Like we're not one of those shops that like needs to do $100,000 every week to stay afloat. So it's this weird like tension thing of pulling, right? Of like what's making money and where we need to focus. And like DTF again, like has been it easier to take on more customers for custom because it's freaking incredible, right?
What was the reaction from your employees when you started bringing in DTF? Were they like, no, we're tried and true screen printers and I don't really want to mess with that? Or were they like, oh, sweet, this is helping me get more work done? What did they think about it?
So a year ago, almost like a year to the day, I did something my dad always told me not to do. And I had like 5 guys in there that were friends. And within 2 weeks, they had brought some really poisonous energy in there. and felt like they had more control than they did. I mean, I didn't even know how to turn the auto on. Like, we bought an auto and I had guys who were running it for years. Like, I just never touched it. So it was like they kind of were holding, and my dad was gone for a while because he had back surgery. So it was like these guys just, they like had me, right? And they knew it. And within like 2 weeks, I fired all of them and had nobody, and had 5 6-color jobs. It was like a whole school's homecoming. It was so bad. And I didn't even know how to use the, I didn't know. I mean, aside from like, I knew a lot more than I thought I knew. So the past year, we were running just me and my dad. And we have somebody in there now that's running like the manual. But when the switch to DTF happened, it was actually like, I don't want to deal with a bunch of, like, now I just feel like the people that work in screen printing for us, some of the employees, it was just, we were paying a lot of money, and they didn't care, they didn't push it out quick enough. And it was just like, we can bring down our yearly revenue by saving all this money to create less of a stressful environment. And then when it got to the point where we were really trying to do bigger runs of multicolors, that's when the DTF thing happened. Because I was like, DTF is basically going to save us 3 guys, like literally 3 employees at 40 hours a week by doing DTF. And it's 100% correct. I mean, the amount of money that we can charge, and we outsource it. We use 2 different companies in Michigan, and the ability to take on a 6-color job at a high volume, a high number, and be able to email a guy the artwork and the dimensions, and it comes in the mail ready to go the next day. Like that savings for us we're saving in personalities, we're saving in money, we're saving in people being late, we're all these things that are saving us a lot overall because the ability to DTF stuff. So no printers were there to be mad at me when I did it.
Wow. Okay, that makes sense. When we had talked earlier, you're like, I'm running on a skeleton crew. You really are. That's about a skeleton.
Yeah,
As it
yeah.
gets.
And it's become really good for us though, because like I said, like we don't need to take, my dad's dad was like an entrepreneur, and he had this whole thing. Sorry, he had this whole thing forever where he was like, become your best customer. And essentially between our store and our merchandise at the market, right? Like we crack our nut between what we own. They're ours, So every week we have cash flow, regardless of if our phone doesn't ring one time, there is still money coming in. And, at $1 million in sales 5 years ago with 1 million guys running around to do it, at the end of the year, like for us, there wasn't really enough left for us to like keep going in that direction. So like we toned it down, brought it back, and figured out ways to maximize profit and minimize, the headaches of trying to chase all the work. Again, like I said, chasing the guy down the street who said $6 for 100 shirts, and I'm going to say $350 because for what? For like, $50 at the end of the day to keep, so that I can keep all these guys working busy, and some guys do it amazing. And I'm sure there's going to be guys on here that have 40 guys working for them and run these crazy tight ships, and they're making money, and they're checked out and working on their next business. But for us right now, like just being in the business and maximizing, because like why build it if I'm not maximizing my income? Like why work harder and make less money because everybody in town's taking my money, whereas like the store, I mean, we have like 10 employees with the store and stuff. We do have employees, but just actual production employees, there's just one girl who's like on her 2nd week right now. And it's just been kind of us like, figuring it out.
Well, don't hire 4 of her friends and you'll be okay.
No. I don't like, I mean, I love being able to like give somebody a job and walk back to my desk. Like, I love that, right? Like, here's 1,000 t-shirts, here's the screens. It's your problem. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I want to be like on lunch dates with potential $1 million clients. But right now with, it's world, I mean, it's countrywide, right? Like hard to find good people. But if if I'm paying somebody 20, 25 bucks an hour to run the auto, like, you know, they got to be like a magical person. They got to be good to be around. They got to be a good worker. They got to show up on time. They got to, all these things. And I just more times than not, it's not their business. They don't care. So and maybe that's the culture I create, and that might need work. But again, DTF, like, our computers taking jobs. I mean, who knows? But I know DTF is saving all of us in this industry a lot of headache.
How are you making the decision between, okay, this is a screen printing job versus this is a DTF job?
Quantity is a big part. We wouldn't take anything less than like 50 or 100 shirts before, and now we'll take 36 shirts. Colors, the style of print, what it is. Randomly, so this market that we work, we sell like truckloads of tote bags. Like, you wouldn't believe how many. And we always printed them, and like we would even print like a 5-color tote, which is like absurd. Like, you're tacking the under tote, the inside of the tote, like. And I was like, hey, let's DTF totes. I was like, let's just try it. And like, the tote bags look so good. Like, the way that DTF looks on the cotton canvas tote is insane. Like, they look so much better than you could ever screen print them. And I mean, it's like it's actually mind blowing. It almost looks like the tote came like that. Like, so we really like stretch it, right? Like, we use it for everything from a 24-piece order that's 2 colors that easily could set up and print. But it's just why if you can have the same product, if not better, go through the hassle of reclaiming the screens when, like, you have these screen printing jobs that you're going to need screens for. And like, my dad's like the old school shop. Like, we literally have burned screens with ink in them from like probably like the 90s still, like, that he just keeps up there because like this one guy comes once a year and orders 40 shirts. And so like, it's just like I say, like, game changer, like operating small and trying to maximize profit. Notice I'm not saying revenue, straight up profit. Money for me, money for my dad, money for the business, to be healthy. And it's just such a great, I mean, it's not even a tool, right? It's like a weapon. It's like we have a weapon now where, it's even like as stupid as like your buddy who has no comprehension of my business or how it works, who's like, I want one shirt for my mom. And like, I would like hang up before, I would just laugh, right? And it was like, I just look like a jerk. I still don't really do that, but like, I can, right? Like, I could make one shirt for like somebody's birthday party, I don't, get me wrong, like, I don't want to, but it really covers from one shirt to 1,000 shirts. And you see it a lot more now too. I think like the consumer, like you said, organic, right? The consumer is going to be more used to digital prints because you see them a lot more, and on polyester, like those weird sports shirts, like the, filament polyester and stuff like that. I mean, they just, they don't migrate. Like, now you're giving them a way better product with DTF than you were with screen print.
And I think there's so much value in being able to go to your local print shop and saying, I just need a couple shirts for X, Y, and Z versus going online. Yeah, it's going to get there, but it's going to be super cheap. It's going to, you're probably not going to be happy with the print, but if you can keep coming back to you for even smaller jobs, that can lead to more. And you're going to create that relationship that didn't really exist before. And there's 100% value there.
Yeah. And like back to like when BTG was like the big rage, right? Like, it was so limited, and expensive. And, like, we never purchased any machines, but we had like a guy that I knew that did it. And, like, unless I was selling like a vintage look, it was almost like, unless the consumer was purchasing something that had like a vintage look, because like the quality just was weird, and the color on color and the feel and the whereas again, like DTF, is you're giving them exactly what they want. And unless it's a dinner plate, which the same with screen printing, right? Unless it's just a huge design that has total coverage, the feel is, I mean, I just did these shirts last week and I was blown away by the feel of the DTF on the shirt. I mean, it was a nice shirt. It was like a next level tri blend or something like that. And I mean, it was like I mean, and I felt a million shirts, right? And I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't believe how I didn't ship them because I wanted my dad to feel it on Monday. So I left them at the shop on Friday. I'm like, oh, sorry, they didn't ship yet, because I wanted him to feel it, because it was a new guy that we were buying DTF from, and it's a game changing. It's game changing for the industry, and it's also game changing for people that just want to start a business, a small business. Like, how cool that you can buy a crappy heat press on Amazon and some DTF, and for a couple $100, start your little business. And it's cool, right? Because it's quality and it's good and it gives people opportunity, and it's clean, which is so great. You don't have to wash your hands 75,000 times, and it's consistent, and the ink doesn't dry. I mean, I don't know. If it ever, if can I swear? If it hit the fan, if everything hit the fan, and I lost all my equipment, the building, everything, I would buy a heat press and start doing DTF. I wouldn't buy a little manual. I wouldn't, because a dryer, a manual, ink, all these things. I wouldn't do that. I would just go out and I would just heat press from my garage and do it that way until I could do something else. But you're going to start seeing shops that they probably do, have 150 heat presses and are just 100% just DTF all day long, because it just doesn't sacrifice the integrity of what we're doing, unless you're the artist who is very into the craft of screen printing, which that's not me. And those guys are awesome. But if you're just churning and burning shirts and trying to make people happy, sign me up, baby. I'm in.
Yeah, I spoke with someone about that, the difference between, moving from screen printing, which can be considered such an art. And he was like, just stop right there. I'm running a business. I'm printing shirts. So I thought that was really interesting. I guess because you have both, what are your thoughts on screen printing and DTF maybe in the next 5 years? Do you think that you will still have your autos? Do you think you'll move to DTF? Do you think you'll bring DTF in-house, an actual, machine?
I think I would definitely, yeah. I think bringing it in-house is something that I don't see. I see January, that being something, get through this year. And when it for us, we slow down January, February, just to learn the machine and learn how it goes. We just randomly, it was the only cold email I think I've ever answered. It was a local guy who just bought a machine and has been amazing to deal with. And, I mean, relationships go up and down. So I don't know, maybe I won't like him in a week. But right now he's great. And so that's kind of nice, because it's a couple clicks and it comes the next day. So the convenience of running lean, again, is if I'm paying him, even if I pay him $100,000 this year for transfers, yeah, could I bring it in-house? Yeah, but that's one more thing that I'm trying to operate, or we're bringing somebody in to operate. Auto, there's nothing when you're really running, if you're doing a 1-2 color and you're able to really just crank out a couple hundred shirts, 300-400 shirts every hour. Our equipment is all owned outright, no loans or anything, which is really great. So it's not we have this payment we're making on the auto and stuff. So I mean, I think I look at the whole business is an asset to me, where again, it's part of my whole spectrum. So adding equipment, adding DTF, I think the future is DTF. I think it's way bigger than we even think it is. And I don't think screen printing will, just when DTG, people thought it was hot. I think screen printing will always have a space, and I think autos will always have a space. But it will be interesting to see, though, in 5 years, if, autos, right? I don't know. That's a good question, because it's definitely mind-blowing how they take something that is complicating, right? A 6-color job on an auto, that just takes a lot of time and work and training. And I mean, you could hire you could hire anybody to press DTF, and it's going to be good, right? Like, the customer's not going to call you on Tuesday and be like, 700 shirts have a pinhole. Like, I've had that call, right? Like, there's 700 shirts and every sleeve has ink on it. And it's like, and then I'm like, I didn't see it. And they're like, how did you not see it? And they don't understand I have a million things going on, right? But like, you can trust that you look at that one transfer, 99.9% chance they all look like that.
Yeah, my dad is an artist, and my sister and I ran a half marathon in Miami earlier this year, and he just made shirts for us. But he designed it, he printed out, his own transfer, and then he actually with an iron,
Oh, yeah.
like, and I was like, in my head, I'm like, should I just get you a heat press? It's like, you could start a business, but I think that's the exciting part for, you're bringing in kind of that's where the artistry comes, because people who can do this in their garage or in their basement, they can bring this equipment in, and that's pretty awesome that it's not just you have to get a loan or pay for this incredibly challenging equipment in terms of pricing, and then having to bring people in. It's definitely a more streamlined process.
Yeah, well, yeah, the whole process, it really, and and I think like going into social media and stuff, right? Like, we do live in a world where like, let's say that you sell beer for Busch, or Anheuser-Busch, and you lose your job, and you're an artist and you've always been passionate about it. I mean, we live in a world where like you actually can come up with a brand and do it all in house with minimal equipment, with DTF and a heat press or an iron. I don't know if it's going to stay on over all the washes, but we'll see. And you can do that. And like, if you're creative and you work hard and you are consistent, you probably within a year or two can get right back to what you were making as the sales guy for Anheuser-Busch. And then you'll be happier, right? Like, post-COVID, I feel like everybody in the world, like, we did learn what it was like to have a little bit more time at home. And I think that everybody craves now, right? Like, I used to go to work at 7 and get home at 6:30. It's like, if I'm there from 9 to 4, that's a good day now. And it's just because life changed and there's more time at home, whatever. And I think that opportunity, which is so separate from this whole business opportunity, right? Where like, I'm running a business, like, how can I get exactly what you want as quick as possible? DTF answers that. But then the whole other side of, the coach, the guy who owns a gym, loves doing shirts, who buys a heat press, and now he can freaking do his own shirts for his gym, and he can buy that $3 shirt and sell it for $25, which helps keep his business healthy and helps, there's enough t-shirts for every soccer mom and every gym owner to run their own DTF, right? Like, it's not going to hurt me if, it's just not, like, and if it does, that's my problem. It's not theirs,
Yeah. Well, with DTF, you are getting the people who are in their homes doing this, but you're also getting the multi-million-dollar companies who have now just added 3 different DTF machines in-house, and they're running those puppies all day long. So it really runs the gamut as to who the business owner is, and I think that's awesome for the industry.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I just ordered 300 transfers this morning, like, from my new guy, 3 different jobs, 300 transfers. They'll be here tomorrow. And like, all I can think is, I'm like, wow, it's insane that I'm going to knock out like 3 jobs tomorrow without changing into my dirty shirt, probably by noon. Like, literally 3 multicolored jobs that I haven't even, or the garments are there. So the blanks I ordered yesterday, they're there. And I sent him an email with the artwork, and probably by noon, I would guarantee by noon tomorrow, they will be done. Like, for a small guy like me, like, that is game changing, right? Like, even the big boys, like even the shops I know that have, 10 autos. I mean, they could barely, they're polished and perfect and have shop managers and all this stuff. And it would be hard for them to knock out that many color jobs that quick, without this major streamline of A, B, C, D, E, F, G. This guy does this. It would still be hard for them to screen print that, and that is, I don't know. I mean, if I could just do DTF, I would probably just do DTF. But I'm not I'm just like a screen printer by default now. I had to be.
Yeah, that's a pretty big, bold phrase. But I think that's exciting. And I think you find what works best for your business. And clearly you have, and also found
Yeah.
what's best for your life. And to have that time off and spend it with your family and not be so stressed and also not be covered in ink all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, there's greatness there too. Well, Adam, before we wrap this up, is there anything else you want to say about your business, your Instagram, your move to DTF?
I think overall, I think it's important to try it for sure, DTF, because I've clearly made this statement that it's been a game changer for us. But just not being afraid of change, being in a business with my dad who's 70, like a change is a big thing. He won't change, and so introducing things to him is very delicate. And I think my mom texted me the day we first did it, and it was like those 600 shirts or maybe one before that. And she wrote, like, Dad said it's a game changer or whatever he said. And it was like funny because I was like, something that he would have never thought now is great. And I think just like with social media and all that, Instagram and like, especially for people, like we didn't talk a lot about like the actual retail aspect of it, but like if you think you want to get into that retail space, like creating an experience for the consumer so that what I always say is you have to make them feel a certain way when they wear your t-shirt. And so my whole goal on Instagram is to create a feeling for people that when they wear a shirt, whatever it says, if it's soft and has a nice print, when they wear it, they're feeling something that I'm creating or I've created that now is bigger than just me. But, all you're trying to do with this is create something people can be excited about. And t-shirts is such a fun way, right? I mean, to the back of time, right? Like the Jersey Shore, they always have weird t-shirts on. Like t-shirts are the world, right? Like they've always been expressing messages. And if you can figure out a way to express the message on your own, like even if you're a screen printer and all you do is custom and like you just are so bored by the monotony of all of our struggles and all of the things that we deal with as screen printers for custom, if you like put your own thing out there and just kind of go for it. And DTF's a great way to try some small runs too, right? You can try something without burning screens and see if it moves. But I think just like identifying that like people want clothing to wear that makes them feel a certain way. So, and it is just a t-shirt, but if you can make people feel a certain way, I mean, somebody just was at the Lions game this weekend and we had this crazy experience with this past week with a job. Well, something that happened, but, somebody said they saw our shirts everywhere at the game. And they were like, it was so cool. I was like, oh, that's my friend. That's my friend. And it's like, they are everywhere. But somehow, because we've created, I mean, Camper Dan and all this stuff has nothing to do with anything. But we've like created this thing that now they all come. And even if somebody else has the same shirt, right? Just like Detroit, they buy it from me, not them, because it makes them feel a certain way, So I guess that's like my little advice if somebody like wants a side hustle of shirts or has always wanted to like have a brand, like make it about you, like you be the brand and you be the person and the ambassador and it'll come back like 100-fold.
What is the major difference just as the owner between the retail store and the print shop?
So like, they're completely run separately. The print, so like the print shop, I mean, honestly, like the majority of my customers at the print shop don't even know about the retail or any of it. Like it's super separate. And mostly because the way that screen printing goes and the timing and the relationships. And then I have this like goofy persona. Like I don't want to mix them where like all of a sudden I'm like, no, it's going to be 3 weeks because we're backed up and we've got all this and this didn't come. So like that guy, so like they're run completely separate. And like, really, I would say like maybe 10% of our customers even know that we have a retail store that come through the custom side. So they just run, all like obviously we produce everything at Steiner, where our warehouse for the store. But as far as like businesses, they're pretty much run as two separate entities. And there's crossover a little bit, but not, not too much.
Yeah, that makes sense. I like what you said too. Again, we talked about it being that brand ambassador and making that store your own and having that, personalization of the owner come through. Also, your creative side, you can't beat that.
Yeah.
So, where can everyone find you in terms of website, retail store, Instagram?
So the website's campusshopUSA.com, and then Instagram is the Campus Shop, and then the merch site is steinermerch.com.
Perfect. Yes, I definitely urge everyone to check out the Instagram, check out the websites. If any vendors are listening, looks like Adam's looking for maybe DTF equipment in January. That's Impressions Expo Long Beach.
Let's go.
You might be walking the show floor.
See you there.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining us, Adam. We'll catch you next time on the next episode of the DTF Printing Podcast. Thanks for listening.